All the stocks and groups that are making in news flow today. Let's welcome in the management at V-Guard now. The management is now joining us. They declared their numbers on Friday towards closing of markets hours. Mr. Mithun, MD at V-Guard Industries, is now joining us. Sir, thank you so much for taking out time for us. Could you just first start by the margins? They have declined in Q3. What's the reason? While there has been a softening of copper prices, will that reduce some margin pressure in the near term?
So we had a pretty good growth for some of the categories. Categories like stabilizers, inverters and batteries, water heaters and electric fans, they all grew quite well. The sales growth in the wire segment was quite muted, so we didn't have much of a growth in the house wiring cable segment. But otherwise, the sales growth numbers in all the other major categories was as per expectation. As far as Kerala is concerned, demand has picked up in some categories, but something like wires and cables, which is linked to construction industry, demand remains muted in Kerala. But the other product categories, there has been a decent pickup in demand.
Okay, something that everybody would like to know is how the Kerala market has recovered right now. Of course, given the recovery of the lost sales, will wires, cables and pump be the key beneficiaries from the replacement demand? And how do you see the overall segmental growth in that region?
So I think definitely wires should come back strongly, is what we feel, due to the rebuilding work which is starting. That is one. Second is, as far as pump is concerned, we had a lot of heavy rains this year, so water tables were very high in South India. But what has happened is, now the summer is expected to be quite strong. So with that, the water table will go again low, which will trigger demand for pumps. So I think pump demand should pick up in the next, in Q4 and Q1, in the coming Q4 and Q1.
What has been the growth in the electrical segment? Has it been muted in that segment?
So the growth in electrical segment was muted primarily driven by the wires business. The wire business has not grown in Q3. It has remained flat. So that has dragged down the overall business in the electrical business. Even the pump business has been quite lackluster. So these two are the major categories in electrical which has not performed.
Could you also tell us if you're on growth, rather on track to grow about 15% in terms of revenue in the second half of this fiscal, driven by the introduction of new products in, of course, non-South markets, acceleration in spending owing to general elections? Would these be good triggers, good levers which could propel your growth to 15% in the second half as well?
So if you look at our first 9 months, our growth is roughly about 10%. It's not going to be possible for us to hit 10%, but like-to-like growth is about 11.5 to 12%. So it looks like we should end the year with a like-to-like growth of 12 to 13%. 15% will be short of that by about 2%.
I'll check with
Right. You constantly has emphasized on introduction of new products that have higher gross margin. What are the new product introduction? Can you tell us what are some of them lined up in the next few quarters?
So if you look at it, we have launched the modular switches, which is having pretty high gross margins in the high 30s, and then we have also launched air coolers. Again, we have high gross margins in the high 30s. So I think these two product categories are growing very well. Switchgear business also growing fairly fast, again having high gross margins. So I think there will be a definite positive impact on the company gross margin, because right now our gross margins are about 25 to 26%. But we hope that the gross margins will improve as the revenue share of these businesses keep going up.
Thanks, Mithun. Really appreciate you taking time out to chat with us about your growth plans ahead.